All right, all right. Gonna do a little share screen. Happy Tuesday. What I wanted to talk about was all the crazy diets that are out there. Some of them crazy, some of them too crazy, but there are elements of crazy to them. Or it might be, you could say, elements of non sustainability. Let's put it that way. One of my colleagues posted this on his Instagram. If popular diets change their names to be more accurate, Optavia, eating disorder in a box, Noom, the antithesis of psychology based Weight Watchers causing weight regain for 60 years. How many, no matter how many times we rebrand, Macros Inc., you're just a number, and Keto, the thief of joy. I thought that was pretty funny. In essence, what he's trying to say is that the reason these diets are popular is because they promise instant gratification, therefore fast results, right? But at the end of the day, when you're through the process, has it really taught you anything? And honestly, many people wind up being even heavier and actually having a worse relationship with food. So the idea is really to get complete and real change. We need to change our behaviors. We need to change our habits. We need to change our lifestyle. And it really does need to be a personalization type of program versus the one size fits all, because majority of them are not sustainable. But these diets are going to continue to be successful because they prey on women's vulnerabilities. And really specifically, women tend to fall into these traps. So they won't ever go away. There will just be more and more. What I did want to talk about were some of the diets that are not packaged diets per se, that are more like, I guess you could call them styles of eating. So here's the list here. And the first three, when I was doing my certification with Dr. Stacy Sims, these popped up in her program really because of not only their popularity, but how they impacted women specifically over 40. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in depth and then just really touch on the ones at the bottom there. So what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting. Some common methods include the 16/8 method, where you're fasting for 6 hours and you eat within an 8 hour window. The timing doesn't really matter. It just has to be within an 8 hour window. And then there's also alternate day fasting, where you're eating one day, not eating the next. And I'm sure there are a plethora of other methods, but in general, you're basically not eating for certain periods of time during the day, which also then results mostly in calorie restriction, right? So that's why these are lumped together. So intermittent fasting and calorie restriction and how they impact women over 40. You may have heard me, or maybe not, speak about insulin resistance, which can be a thing for women as they are approaching menopause. It is a topic that you will certainly hear about that does, again, affect many women our age as they're going through this process and beyond. So, intermittent fasting and calorie restriction don't have an effect on insulin resistance, can have an adverse effect pre-diabetes or diabetes. And the reason being is if you're restricting timing wise, it can affect your blood sugar levels. So definitely not a good thing to do if you have a tendency or that in your history. to make sure that you've got a steady flow of protein, carbohydrates, and fat coming in throughout your day. Was found to increase your HDL. There was really no change in your LDL or triglycerides through doing IF or calorie restriction. Actually, it increased the oxidative stress and the inflammation response within the bodies. And kisspeptin threshold was affected, and it can impact your endocrine system, which ultimately is a big part of your hormones. Maybe not for everybody, and some people may have success with intermittent fasting if they don't have issues with diabetes, but really the impact is basically you're taking in less calories because you're giving yourself a shorter window time frame for eating. So that is intermittent fasting, calorie restriction. And then we move on to keto, which is low carb, high fat diet. The aim is to induce ketosis, which is where your body is in a metabolic state where you're using fat for fuel instead of carbohydrates. So you're eating a lot of healthy fats, some moderate protein, but very low carbs. And most of your carbs are just coming from vegetables, even very little fruit. And again, you can have rapid weight loss, but eating a keto diet is really difficult to sustain. First of all, let's face it, carbs are yummy and they're really hard to stay away from. So basically, you're really going to have a challenging time if you ever want to spend some time with family and friends eating at one of their houses. And also, going out to dinner is going to be really tough when you're on a keto diet. So, how about keto for women over 40? It can increase cortisol and cortisol stress, which actually can drive body fat up. It can suppress the thyroid, which is already something that women over 40 may see changes in. If you are exercising, you need carbohydrates in order to do so effectively. Otherwise, you're going to feel like a big slug. You're going to bonk. You're not going to have that energy. It can actually increase fat gain and can have even more negative effects for perimenopausal women. This may work for somebody that is severely obese and not exercising at all. So, somebody that's very overweight and sedentary, keto may work. But again, what's going to happen when that individual goes back to eating carbohydrates? That weight's going to come right back on. So, very difficult to sustain. Then we move to a plant-based diet, which is actually wonderful, in my opinion, if you can manage it and also combine that with eating a little protein here and there. But your plant-based diet is basically getting fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and minimizing or completely eliminating animal products. And based on Dr. Sim's studies, as far as women over 40 are concerned, it has found to have improved mood, increased immunity, actually is what's the word I'm looking for? Can calm the parasympathetic system, that fight or flight. It can help with weight management, definitely reduces cardiovascular issues, helps with blood sugar control, and also assists with oxidative stress. Definitely a good option for many people. And I personally like majority of fruits and vegetables, but with the caveat that birds, fish, and occasional red meat is not going to kill you. As many plants as you can eat is wonderful. And you definitely, if you want to go fully plant based for whatever your reason is, you're going to have to do some heavy research into how you're going to get more protein in because it's really difficult to do without eating meat, fish, and dairy. Going into other types of diets that you may have heard of, the Mediterranean diet is actually a very healthy diet. It's whole plant-based foods, healthy fats coming from olive oil and nuts, lean proteins, fish and poultry, and moderate wine consumption. Think about Greece, Spain, France. What is their lifestyle like? Although remember too that they do walk everywhere they go, right? So movement is a large part of their life. It does promote heart health and can actually help with lowering cholesterol and also can reduce the risk of other chronic disease. Then this one popped up, the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So this is for specifically for people that might have high blood pressure. Basically, you are decreasing your sodium intake. Again, it's a large focus on whole foods. Pretty much most diets that are sane will have you eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and if you can tolerate low fat dairy, just a more balanced approach to eating like the Mediterranean diet. And there definitely are some differences amongst the Mediterranean, the DASH, and the AIP, but they're pretty minimal. Paleo was all the rage. You don't hear too much about that these days. But basically, the paleo were foods presumed to have been available to our ancestors, right? Lean meats, fish, fruits, anything that you could kill or pick off a bush is what basically paleo diet includes. So no processed foods, no greens, no dairy, and no legumes. Again, that was all the rage to support weight loss and also reduce inflammation. I know when I was working at a gym back east, the owner there was very into the paleo diet. And again, if you're eating basically whole foods, the thing with the grains, dairy, and legumes, some people can have sensitivities to that. You may have also heard of Whole 30, which I did not list on here. Whole 30 is very similar to paleo. And off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember the differences, but I don't remember them. They're similar in that pretty strict and I think hard to sustain, but you can, if that's something that you enjoy or have enjoyed, doing it for maybe 30 days or so as like a reset might be something to consider. But trying to live that lifestyle, I think, is pretty challenging. Again, because your carbohydrates are so severely limited. You may have also heard about the low FODMAP diet. Actually, I was just at the doctor's this week and I was telling her that sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll wake up with this pain on my left side. There's nothing really on the left side other than your intestines and your stomach. She said it just might be when you go off how you normally eat, your stomach's a little more affected and it might be irritating your digestive system. So she had mentioned low FODMAP foods. So basically it's restricting certain foods that might cause digestive issues. And that could be different for everybody. But you can restrict the foods and then you can gradually reintroduce them to see exactly which ones might be triggering you. Or you just know if what you used to eat is such that you felt fine and then the holidays came along and you weren't eating all the same foods that you were, that you're making a decision to eat them and feel like crap or just avoid them altogether and you'll feel fine. What I find is, and this is what was running through my head, if I eat like even a lot of just fatty foods and not even unhealthy fatty foods, but guacamole, for instance, although along with the guacamole comes the chips, right? That tends to inflame my stomach and it hurts. Like in the middle of the night, I will wake up. So it's a matter of you discovering foods that you're following, how they affect you, and then choosing to eat them on occasion or not. And then this is the last one, the autoimmune protocol. Again, this is very similar to Whole 30 and paleo with just a few minimal differences there. But The aim is to lower blood pressure. It's going to consist mainly of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and low fat dairy, reducing your sodium. And again, just another balanced approach to eating. And the goal is to promote heart health and weight management. So, really, what should you eat? What does it boil down to? Trying to eat as many low inflammatory foods as possible. And earlier I mentioned the food sensitivities. So they would be soy, eggs, dairy, red meat for some people make them feel really bloated. Nightshades, which is a classification of foods and would include things like peppers, tomatoes, onions, garlic, eggplant, might be a few other ones, but those are the ones that I'm recalling off the top of my head. Gluten, nuts, and shellfish for some people. Again, not everybody is affected by all of these, but you can have intolerances where you might feel bloated or gassy, or you just feel off from eating those things. And the best way to find that out is to not eat those things and then add in a category. So you want to test your sensitivity to dairy. Avoid eating dairy for a minimum of 14 days. I like 28 just to be sure. And then for maybe 3 to 5 days, you take in 2 to 3 servings a day. And you'll know right away if you're having a reaction, we'll call it, to that particular food. Then you go back to eating low inflammatory again and then try a different group. Oh, and I didn't list alcohol. That should be on here too. That can definitely cause inflammation. More lean protein, lots of vegetables and fruit, especially as we are getting older and we can have a sensitivity towards certain carbohydrates and certain fats. So that again is going to be on an individual basis and the carbohydrate in influx, I should say, may impact your insulin tolerance or intolerance. So, just in general, cutting back on sugar and refined carbs. As far as carbohydrates are concerned, people automatically go to low carb diets to see that fast loss on the scale because for every gram of carbohydrate, you're going to hold on to a certain amount of scale weight, if that makes sense. So as soon as you take the carbs away, the scale drops and you're like, yay. And then you eat carbs and then the scale goes up and you're like, I suck. So just keeping in mind that carbohydrates are not bad, but how they affect your body and specifically your scale weight is going to be, again, individual, but you're also going to see that quick drop if you really drop your carbohydrates down. And you're going to see a quick gain if you add a lot of carbohydrates in, especially if they're in a gluten group and you're eating them with other types of foods that can cause food sensitivities. So I always give the example of pizza, right? So when you think about pizza and what's on it, you've got gluten in the dough, you've got dairy in the cheese, and then you definitely have nightshades, probably eggs too, in the dough. You know, you might be intolerant a little bit of each of those things, but when you eat them all together, your body's, holy hell, what did you just do to me? So just keeping that in mind, how carbohydrates will affect your scale weight. And then also, while you might have food sensitivities just a little bit towards things, when you add them to one specific item like pizza, it might have more of an impact on you and how you feel. What is your homework or your takeaway from this? Fad diets are always going to be around because it's a moneymaker and we've all tried them most likely and we've probably all seen success. And then as soon as we stopped doing what we were doing, that weight came back on and sometimes even more. So, what are 2 to 3 things that you can commit to incorporating or maybe even minimizing for a healthier nutritional intake that you can sustain at least for 1 to 3 months, and then see if it's something that you can create as a habit or something that you actually enjoy. If you are looking for a quick cut for a wedding or for some kind of event, that is always possible. And it's always possible, even by not having a particular diet to follow, but by eliminating certain things, AKA carbohydrates, increasing your protein and moving more. So there's definitely ways to manipulate your body to have quick hits. But, what is the ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve? And what are things that you can do forever that you're willing to do majority of the time that are going to push you towards just a healthier overall nutritional intake? So, any questions out there? I'm going to jump over to Facebook. I finally remembered to put my phone on silent. I don't see any questions. If you're on Zoom and you want to ask, put them in the chat. And just here to remind you to ask questions. If you have any questions regarding this particular live video, just post them in the comments. If I don't know the answer, I'll go find the answer. And next week, I think I'm talking about, what am I talking about next week? That's a good question. Next week is, the diabetes drugs and weight loss. Another fad that's coming to the surface, which is actually a little dangerous. So we'll talk about that next week. And then just a quick reminder, if you're still out here and you're still listening, apply for the scholarship to win 3 months of free coaching. And if you know anybody that would benefit from that, let me know as well. Send them to me or send me to them, and I will send them the application to fill out. Super easy. I think it's 5 questions or something like that. And 2 of the questions are first name and last name. So easy peasy. All right. I am going to peace out because I'm not seeing any questions out here. And you guys have a wonderful evening. If you're on the East Coast, hopefully you are staying dry and warm because I hear you guys are getting walloped with rain, which is a bummer. Maybe not. It would be a bummer for me.